Hey, welcome to the Growth Whisperers Podcast, where everything we talk about is building enduring great companies. I'm Kevin Lawrence here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, here with my amazing co-pilot or lead pilot or whatever you want to look at him as, Brad Giles down in Perth, Australia. Brad, how is the world treating you today?
Beautiful, beautiful. It's a very hot day today here, and I'm kind of saying that a little bit to tease you because
thank you.
I know it's going to be cold, whatever's happening in your part of the world. But no, apart from the weather, look, life is good. Things are good. I keep hearing that we're coming out of this pandemic from all different sources. So delighted about that. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, I had a couple of days in the US, so in Washington State and LA this week, in California, and they got some real warmth down in California, and then came back here to Canada, and it's a little cold, but it was sunny, so that makes for a great day. So let's jump right into today's show. We got lots to cover. What is your word of the day?
I guess purpose, core purpose. Been doing some work with a client. We know core purpose start with why. You know, all of the stuff around purpose. Why are you doing this? Why does your company exist? Is so important, but it's also I guess a part of a jigsaw, and been working on that today with one of the team members here for a client, and just trying to connect the core purpose to how their financials work through the profit per X and a whole range of things. And they've got to click, they've got to come together. So yeah, without going on, I could speak about that for the next 30 minutes.
I'm sure we both could, yes.
But
purpose. Well, mine's similar. Mine is third generation. A client I have that I work with in India has made many great connections for me, but they referred me to another company in India that's third generation.
Wow.
And so it was, their grandfather started it, went to the father, and now the two sons of the father are driving the business. Their dad's still around and, lightly involved. But it was so cool talking to a third generation business. We got a couple in our firm that are third. We've got one that's fifth generation, but those are, less common. And that's part of our purpose. Speaking of purpose, enduring great companies often means multi-generational. And it was it's an honor to work with and even learn about how they got to the third generation. So how purpose can transcend into the second and third generation is the way to sew that one together today, Brad.
I knew you'd find a way.
That was an easy one. That was like a slam dunk. All right. So today, we're talking about is, hey, someone shared, I'm worried that I'm micromanaging my team. What should I do? And, I just love it when people are honest about it, because micromanaging is a fairly natural tendency for lots of people. I've seen it go the other way. Many CEOs we work with are very strategic, and they run almost so loose that it creates chaos. And then the micromanagers run it so tight that it creates a lot of unnecessary or invaluable friction. But the thing I want to say is, if you think you're a micromanager, you likely are. And it's like with any sort of growth opportunity we have, becoming aware of it and kind of admitting it is the first step, and then you kind of get to work. So yeah, and all of us have tendencies in that direction. I know I know I can for sure.
What's funny about it is we debated the title of this episode, and we said, should it be I'm a micromanaging jerk? And we were like, no, because the listener isn't going to identify themselves as being a jerk. Only the people around them will.
That's exactly right. Most people won't admit it, but your people will tell you if you're willing to listen. So the idea of like really, what is micromanagement? And really, it's about transference, or where responsibility sits. And you're a micromanager for sure if the weight and the gravity of the responsibility of something in your company, a department, a division, a project, the thinking related to it, the planning, the sleepless nights is almost the ultimate measure as it relates to something. If the sleepless nights and all those problems generally keep flowing back up to you, and all the questions and all the problems, generally, you're probably a micromanager, or you haven't done full transference. If you fully transfer responsibility to one of your team members, all of that sits with them. The planning, the thinking, the headaches, the sleepless nights as a concept. And the idea is, have you truly handed it off so they feel full responsibility and accountability? And if you haven't been able to do that, there's a chance that you're still in there micromanaging, because you can say it all you want. But if you're interfering too much and they don't feel full responsibility, either you haven't transferred or you're micromanaging.
Yeah, it's deeply connected to responsibility and accountability. You know, the most successful Harvard Business Review article of all time is called "Who's Got the Monkey?" Or it's a derivative, but it's roughly "Who's Got the Monkey?" And it's about the concept of having monkeys on your back, a monkey being a metaphor for a problem. And so briefly, the story goes that the manager sits in his office all day, and staff members come in and give him these monkeys, these problems. So he spends all of his week taking on these monkeys, and then he's got this pack of monkeys on his back. He's like a monkey collector. And then it comes to Saturday at the end of the week, and as he's driving into the office, he drives past the golf course and he sees all of his subordinates, all of his team members out on the golf course playing golf while he's going in there to solve that problem. Now, that might not be micromanaging, but it's a connected subject around responsibility.
And the key is that people who are truly effective leaders, people will come in and hang out and try and hand the monkey off to you, or we have another story of the hot potato. But the best ones hand it right back. You know, as I shared an experience I had when I worked in the Middle East going back some time ago. And in the role that I was in, it translated a lot because my client became very busy. And one of the things that I learned is I had to get effective at basically not being able to do any of the work or even facilitation. I needed to only ask questions and create accountability.
Yeah.
And that was all the rest. I couldn't help. I couldn't do it. And so I got used to sitting there really thinking, it's almost like I can't use my hands. I can't help at all. I can only ask questions to clarify and create clarity and tension. And that was it. I was unable, based on the time available and the number of companies I was working with, to do anything else. And that's what a good leader does that. I was forced into it because of time scarcity. I had no choice. But good leaders do that even when they have choice. Is they want to be helpful, but really they're more of a coach or a guide or a sounding board to help other people with their problems. Like basically, they help other people with their monkeys. The monkeys never climb onto the shoulder of the executive. It's almost they're Teflon coated, so the monkey couldn't. It's true. You watch effective leaders do it. And it's because their ego and their pride does not come from solving other people's problems. Their ego and their pride comes from seeing other people effective and to sweat and to grow and become better. So there's a dramatically different mindset in that.
There is. Think about when a person starts in a job. So if you're the manager, a new hire starts, and you want them to succeed, and you're saying to them, well, if you've got any questions, this is your job, your table, everything. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate, just come and ask. And that's a friendly welcome. But when do you turn that tap off? And some people never do. And by not turning off that, what happens is people will think to themselves, oh, I'll go and see what Kevin wants me to do. And that's the beginning. And then they never stop thinking that unless you, let's say, make them. Or
train them otherwise.
Unless you train them otherwise. And
it's almost like saying, hey, if your monkey needs a snack, come on in. And you know, it's like you're inviting them to bring their monkeys to you. And it's a beautiful gesture. And we all say it. It's just, it goes against being an effective leader at some point.
And that's how you end up micromanaging. It's a slippery slope. It's
yes, and you don't even realize it. And so there's a chapter in my book, Your Oxygen Mask First, and it's called Stop Being Chief Problem Solver.
Yeah.
And the root of the chapter is we think we're being helpful. Our intention is to help, but we're loading up more work on our own plates, and our people are becoming less effective. So I was recently with a company that I work with, and their COO, wonderful, committed, as smart as they get. But the COO is so busy dealing and answering challenges and questions, and even answering challenges and questions for people 2 levels down, that they can't do their work. And we had a meeting recently. I'm just like, okay, I care about you. You're a really good person with beautiful intentions. You got to stop being so helpful, because everyone comes to you. They're afraid of making mistakes, and they know if they come to you, including the director that reports to you, and they know that it de-risks it if you answer it, but you're getting buried, and then your people aren't having to think. And so even though their intent isn't to micromanage, they have trained people to bring the micro issues to them versus making people accountable and only dealing with the macro or bigger issue. So it's not a bad intention, and they don't know any different, right? They don't, and a lot of times people don't know what great looks like. They don't know that really answering a bunch of questions makes you an ineffective leader or manager, that you should really be training your people to do it on their own.
That's really interesting. I actually read something just on the weekend gone about the transition from, you will be working, let's say, with your brain or with your hands, and then as you escalate your business, all day, all you're doing is making decisions. And
yes, but that's a low level of leadership.
That's a low level. That's not what we're talking about here. But
that's bad advice.
I agree. And that's why I'm raising it, because that's not what leadership is. Leadership is growing the people around you. And the only way that you can grow the people around you is by empowering them, holding them accountable, getting them to own a sandbox, which they genuinely own, and then coaching them, asking them a range of questions. I remember I had a medium-sized business, and I'd walk into the office after coming back from a meeting, and I'd look at across all of the workstations, and about 15 to 20 people would put their eyes up over the workstation, and it'd be like, oh, he's back, I can go and ask him. And it was a nightmare. It was, and I set that problem up. This was many years ago before I learned things like monkeys. But it was such a valuable lesson. And then I switched it over, and I said, at all of my meetings, we would have structured meetings with people, and all I would do would ask questions. If my dialogue didn't end with a question, then I wasn't doing my job. And that's how I switched from suffering this micromanagement curse over to leader as a coach.
Yeah, it's a great example. With a lot of, when we do a lot of leadership team assessments and company health checks, one of the things we use is an assessment we pulled out of some of Collins's work. And one of the questions is, does the team leader spend a lot of time discussing and sharing ideas, or do they use more of a Socratic style, asking primarily questions? And contrary to Hollywood, the best CEOs and executives ask a handful of important questions in meetings. They're not doing a lot of talking and telling. It reminds me, probably about 10 years ago, I was at a conference, and I'm sitting at the table at the back. I like sitting at the back just to take it all in. And there's this guy at my table, and we're talking, we're having great conversations about parenting and life. Turns out he was one of the keynote speakers, and his name was David Marquet. And he wrote a book called Turn the Ship Around. I didn't know if I told you this story, Brad, but
no,
I was sitting with him the whole 2-day conference, and I think he was the end of day 1 or 2. And he gets, he goes, oh, I got to go speak now. And I go, oh, really? Yeah. What are you talking about? And he started talking about leadership. He was the best speaker of that conference, highest rated, just unbelievable. But in the book, Turn the Ship Around, it's about leading a submarine captain. And in their practice drills, because he didn't understand the specific type of nuclear sub he was put on. He was trained on a different one. He gave bad orders and would have killed everyone. Thankfully, it was a simulator, and they didn't. And he went on to develop a masterful leadership style, which was different than the Navy had. And it was based on training people, your team, to come to you and say, I intend to. So people not coming with problems or things that are already done until you build up enough trust and rapport, but telling what they intend to do. And then he said he had two options. You say, excellent, proceed, if it made complete sense to him, or have you considered X, Y, or Z? Not, oh, that isn't going to work because now you're going to drive your people crazy. It's, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Just to understand their thinking and seeing if their thinking had kind of really thought through the issues. And it was a game changer, made all the difference in the world. 10 of his people went on to lead 10 of the Navy nuclear subs that exist in the US. I think there was 20 something, I believe.
Yeah.
So but the point of it is, and I remember that moment I met him, and he shared lots of other amazing things. And most of the CEOs I worked with at the time had them read the book, and many of them use it. But that's, if you're micromanaging, you can be giving specific details and getting deeply involved. Instead, have them come with recommendations in the form of I intend to, and that eliminates a lot of it. It helps you to build better habits and your team also to get smarter and stronger.
Yeah. That's a slow burn, that book. And what I mean by that is it came out, but I find that it's still very successful. It's one of those few books that have just I don't know the sales numbers, but it just keeps on popping up like Good to Great many years after its release. It just because it's such timeless, profound wisdom that just resonates so well with the reader. Love that book, Turn the Ship Around by David Marquet. I remember there was a CEO that I work with. She's lovely, very purpose driven, and very smart, but didn't, I guess, come through the ranks traditionally, if that makes sense. In other words, worker, supervisor, manager, executive, CEO, like a traditional career. And she struggled so much with micromanagement because she was just confounded as to why people weren't doing their job. And it was really quite messy. So she would scratch a little bit on the surface, find a problem, and then dig a bit deeper, and it would be completely different way she expected. But it was like every degree which she turned, she would be seeing this stuff, and it just undermined her whole sort of faith and why she should do things. So this was happening over and over again. We started with the concept of who is the owner, who is accountable, transferring responsibility. We worked on job scorecards or role scorecards for the team, predominantly and firstly her direct reports, and then built out. So we understood, what are you accountable for? What is the sort of the measure of success, the KPI? What's the single thing? So the person knew what they owned, knew what they had to do. And then we played that out through weekly meetings. Now, this doesn't happen quickly, right? You're not going to be able to solve that by the end of the week. And it was also on her to have the trust and vulnerability to be able to step back. But you can turn this stuff around.
Yeah, and you're making a really good point there, Brad. And the key here is, for a lot of people, and we made a list of things that get in the way and cause people to micromanage, even when they don't want to. Some people can't help themselves, right? They're such perfectionists and they can't handle any mistakes. And that's a big piece here. You got to be okay with people making non-critical mistakes. That's the only way people learn.
Yeah.
But at the root for a lot of people is the expectations aren't clear. And that's why you talk about the role scorecard in your book, Onboarded. We use a lot of stuff out of the book, Top Grading as job scorecards, very similar concepts. Yeah. And the key of it, the root, is getting crystal clear on what the heck they're supposed to do. And so I go back to, it's very easy. So I'm working with a new executive team, And it's very easy to dial it in and to help get the team strong, tight, and effective and get better results. We have to have clear financial goals and know who's accountable for what line items of the income statement. We have to have clear operational KPIs for each department. So each of those executives sitting around the table needs to have a list of operational KPIs they're accountable for. The company and each of those executives need to have a set of very clear goals that they are meant to deliver on every quarter. And then we need to do talent reviews to have very clear goals around our people and how we are strengthening and developing our team. High performers keeping engaged, lower performers helping to be improved, and misfit people that aren't going to make it, help them find a job somewhere else. Most companies would be lucky to have one of those four.
Yeah.
Lucky, especially when it gets down to a by executive level. They might have the macro. But when if I'm your head of sales and I know what I'm accountable for in the P&L and we report on it, I got strong operational KPIs and we see those every week. I got clear quarterly goals and those are being reviewed every couple of weeks, every month, and I deliver on those. And I've got goals for the development of my team. I mean, once those goals are set and clarified, and all that can be done at a quarterly meeting, the head of sales manager just needs to touch base and troubleshoot. But you're touching base against those clear outcomes that must be delivered. And when you have that, it's like it makes being a CEO way easier or being a leader way easier because the expectations are so clear. And then you see if the person produces. But a lot of people are weak on that. And as a result, because it's not clear and because the people can't really self-manage and self-report, there's a lot of intervention, which might actually be logical if it's not clear what the person's supposed to do. Not good, but logical.
I remember you just made the comment there, makes the job of a CEO much easier. I remember when I was writing my first book, Made to Thrive, the 5 roles of a CEO, we'd implemented that into one of the teams, and specifically a lot of this stuff we're talking about today. And he pulled me aside and he whispered and he said, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do now because I've got like this. I've got this, all of these system. Cogs working really well. We spoke about the 5 roles and all of the stuff around there, but once you get this stuff working, it's the opposite of being a micromanager where you're coming in on a Saturday with a dozen monkeys on your back. You're the one that has that level of freedom. That's what we're trying to achieve.
Yes. One of the guys actually joined our team. He was with a private equity firm and that we were doing a bunch of work with, and he loves doing the consulting. So he joined us as one of our consultants. He goes, you know what you guys have in your firm? You've got an amazing management system that makes it easier to be a CEO. And so instead of micromanagement, we have a management system, which, you and I, Brad, we and I use the same tools with our clients, and it makes it way easier. So let's just look at a few things here. We got a couple minutes left today, but at the root of micromanagement causes is sometimes people just have bad habits.
Yeah.
So reading that book like Turn the Ship Around or Looking in a Mirror will help. Sometimes people have bad role models. They learn from someone and they think it's the right way, or they watch too much, TV and see bad examples.
In the past, when they were younger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not recently, of course. And then there's, you touched on this, but is that they don't trust their team. And there's 2 versions of that. Don't trust them and they're capable, or don't trust them and they're not capable.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating when we go into companies. I can't tell by just talking to them unless I do a full deep review of them or interview with them. But we assume that they are capable, and we lay down clear financial goals, KPIs, actual goals, or goals to implement the strategy, and goals around the team. We just see what they produce over a couple quarters. We give them the opportunity to show and let them prove through results, because it's hard to know. And sometimes the CEOs and leaders don't. We already talked about training the team to be the answer dispenser. And then we also talked about not having clear expectations to how people self-manage. So the root of it is, it's not necessarily just because you're an underskilled person. You might not have the right people. You might not have the right clear systems for accountability or a management system. So it just makes it a lot harder.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it really starts with the first question that we posed today: where is the responsibility? And if you don't have the system, if you don't have the right people, once you begin the journey of transferring that responsibility fully and accepting the failure that may come of that, you've got to allow people the opportunity to fail. That's when you're able to really move the needle on this problem of micromanagement. So a couple of resources here. We spoke about Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. We spoke about Turn the Ship Around by David Marquis. Harvard Business Review article, Who's Got the Monkey? And for the Growth Whisperers podcast, episode 49, Are You a Genius with 1,000 Helpers? If so, how do you become a level 5 leader? That's a very similar and related book. And also in Kevin's book, Your Oxygen Mask First, are you the chief problem solver, or how can you stop being that? Good chat today, Kev. Good chat. You want to close us out today?
Yeah, just so, hey, thanks everyone for listening. This is the Growth Whisperers. We are the Growth Whisperers. We love growth, enduring growth. I'm Kevin here in Vancouver, and that's Brad down in Perth, Australia. We both have excellent weekly newsletters. We both believe that about each other's and obviously our own. They share just good resources with you, and you can get our newsletter through our websites, which I'll share in a minute. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do, and share with someone else you think that would enjoy it. The video version's on YouTube. Just search the Growth Whisperers. Brad is available at evolutionpartners.com.au, and I am available at lawrenceandco.com. Have a wonderful week, and I hope you can really let yourself off the hook around the micromanagement and put the tools, systems, and people in place so you can be a leader and be freed up to do bigger, more impactful things. Have a great week.